Alright, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode on What the Sheet. And in today's episode, we are going to be replacing my broken Ryobi garage door opener with a Chamberlain half-horse chain drive garage door opener. And the main reason I went with Chamberlain is because, one, it's the same as the one in my third stall over there, so I know it's a good opener. And two, it was a good price. I paid like $129 for this guy, and this one's broken, like I said, but I can't fix it. So the problem is the Ryobi opener, they don't make it anymore. So Ryobi or TTI, they don't make that opener anymore. And the problem is my trolley piece, so this black piece here that runs on the track up there, the plastic wings that are on the side here, they both snapped off during the cold that we had this last week here. So since I can't replace this piece, and it's kind of too much of a hassle to create my own trolley piece to work in this situation, I just decided to buy the half-horse opener, and we're just going to replace the whole system. And in all honesty, it shouldn't be that big of a process. I'm going to try and save the old sensors, just because running the wire and everything is tedious and it's a pain in the butt. And the only real work I should have to do is just drop the old opener down, release that bolt and pin that's down there, and then install the new one basically in the same spot. So it shouldn't take me more than an hour to put everything together. But moving on to all of this. So we're just going to go from left to right here, everything that comes in this box. So you got your half horsepower opener, your rail system broken down into pieces. All you gotta do is just slap it together. Then you got all your kind of random pieces that you need. So this is your brackets for your sensors. This is what connects your rail to your connects the rail to the opener. Your elbow, which will connect the trolley to the garage door itself. The chain, because it's a chain driven opener. Your two sensors, your brackets, one for the door, one for the wall, your clicker for your car, the wall clicker, the other bracket, which I can't remember what this one's for. I do believe this might be for the I'm not sure what this is for. I think this covers the chain. That's what that's for. You got some low voltage wire, which will be good to which will be useful for running the wall clicker from the garage door motor all the way down to the wall, and then a pulley for your chain, the safety release, and then all your random nuts and bolts and screws and tacks to install everything. And this is also a Wi-Fi enabled garage door, so that does come with the, I think it's the MyQ is what the Chamberlain system runs on. So you just download the app, hook it up to your Wi-Fi at your house, and then you can operate the garage door from your phone, which it comes in handy if you have like small children and you don't want them having the garage code, or let's say you need to let somebody in to let your dogs out, or a service guy or whatever. It's nice to just have that option and just do it through your phone. And moving on to the tools. So like I said, I'm replacing an existing opener, so I don't need quite as many tools as they show here in the instructions, just because I don't have to drill holes or anything like that. I'm just pulling things out, putting new stuff in. So the main tool I'm going to be using is a wire stripper for the low voltage wire, two screwdrivers, Phillips and a flathead, a small hammer for tacking up the low voltage wire, and let's see, I got my 3/8 drive socket. I got a 1/4 inch up to 5/8, and then my 1/4 inch ratchet, and then a 7/16 wrench. That's also ratcheting on the end, which will be handy. And then just a rag, just because dealing with the chain, your hands get a little oily, so it's nice just to have a little rag to kind of wipe the oil off. So what I'm going to do is we'll just go through, I'll kind of breeze over some of the assembly pieces and kind of show you. I mean, it's not super complicated, but it's sometimes there might be something here or there that you might miss if you're doing this for the first time, or you've never or if you're replacing a different motor system. So like in this case, I'm going from a Chamberlain, or going to a Chamberlain with a square tubing rail system from a Ryobi with a weird kind of U-channel type system. And that's a belt driven versus a chain driven. So there's some little differences between the two different garage door openers, and I can kind of go over that as we kind of move through the video here. But the first step of the assembly process is to put the rail sections together for your garage door. And since mine's just like kind of a standard door, I put all the rail sections together. If you need more, you can order extra pieces online, or they might have them in Home Depot. I didn't look because I don't need to worry about it. And the main thing to remember is when you put all this together is to make sure you get your trolley piece on before you start mounting this to the wall, and like actually going to mount it to the ceiling and everything, because it's a real pain in the butt to have to haul this thing back down just to put this small trolley piece on. So always be cognizant of that. So I'm going to get this assembled and get the trolley piece slid on, and then we'll come right back when we're getting ready to attach it to the motor itself. Alright, so we got our rail fully assembled. It has notches on the side here. So if, let's say you have a little bit bigger door, so I think my door is 7 feet tall. So let's say you have like an 8-foot door. This rail system should, I do believe it still works for an 8-foot door. You just wouldn't push each individual section all the way down. You'd only push it to a certain point, and then you just press these tabs in, and that'll kind of lock it in place. And you do that for the whole thing. It gives you that little bit of an extension that you need. And the other thing to remember is that this end that's got the open cutout here, this is going to be the end that faces towards, or it's going to mount to the wall. So this will be basically where your garage door will be, right here. And then your trolley system, you want all the bracket pieces on it. So I'll move this out of the way here. So all these little wings that come off to the side, you want them to be basically on your left side if the door is that way. And then this piece is the piece that will mount to the motor itself. And all you got to do when you're putting this in to make sure it's right is you want the channel facing up. That way the one hole on the back edge matches with the hole here, and vice versa with the other bracket or the mounting point here. And then all it is just these 2 bolts that are the 1/2-inch drive on your socket. Just undo these. You can use an impact gun, like a 12-volt or an 18-volt drill if you have one with a socket adapter. That'll work just fine. It doesn't really matter if you use the chrome bits or not, because you're not using a lot of force. So all you got to do to install this is get it mounted up, and I like to start with this bottom hole, and you just kind of hand screw everything in just to get it started. At least try to anyways. There we go. So once you get this first one started, it'll make it a lot easier to get the second one going. You just want to line up your hole, throw the bolt in, take your wrench, and you can do this on the floor of your garage if you have the space. Or if you do what I did, I just took 2 sawhorses, and I have an extra sheet of 4x8 OSB laying around, and just made a work table out of it, which makes this job go so much easier because you're not having to be crouched over on the floor trying to assemble this. So you just want to hand tighten these down. You don't need to go super hardcore with reefing everything down. There's no specs on the torque settings for all this stuff. So next we're going to mount this black piece here, and this is just going to be let's see, which way does this go? Okay, so this slides, fits something like so on here, and this will just kind of help guide the chain, because the chain, if you've noticed on my other garage opener that's over there, there's nowhere for the chain to sit. It just kind of floats around. So what you got to do is you put this here, and this will guide the chain as it gets back to the sprocket here. That way it's not jumping off the sprocket. And then once you actually install the chain, there's some tensioner bolts and stuff that you can use, and that'll make sure that that chain's nice and tight and it's not flopping around, unlike that one, which I'll have to adjust today once we get everything else installed. So I'll get this on, and we'll move on probably to the next step or two, which will probably be putting the chain on and getting ready to actually mount the opener up in the ceiling, in which case once we get to there, I'll take the old one down, try and save the wires, and then we'll get ready to put this one up. Alright, so this next step is pretty simple. We're just going to install the pulley at the end here in the slot. So this slot is where your chain will run through and then back. So the pulley slides in the middle like so, and then you just want to line up those holes as best you can. There's a little dab of grease inside the pulley. You might be able to see a little bump there. That's actually a little bit of grease. So we want to flip this so the grease is facing up. That way when I put the bolt through, it'll smear that grease on the inside. And then you're going to use this black bolt that's got a big fat kind of collar on it with a little bit of thread at the end. And the pulley will be, its bearing surface will be here on the kind of the big smoother portion of the bolt. And this is a plastic pulley, more than likely made out of like a Delarin, which is a harder plastic that's designed for like wear surfaces. And then you're just going to use the lock washer, and then I think it's a 3/8 bolt, which the outside diameter is a 5/8, so you just use that socket and run these up. And then I'm just going to use an adjustable wrench or a Canadian wrench on the top here. That way I have a good surface to grip on. Then you're just going to cinch it all down, because you're not going to be able to, I mean, I guess you could if you really cinch down on it, but you just want to get everything tight. That way the bearings in there good. And then once this is assembled, the next step will be running the chain all the way through the whole system and then putting the pin in on the chain. So I'll show that part next. Alright, so I have my chain strung all the way around, and honestly this is probably the most tedious and kind of a frustrating part about this, just because of kind of how chains are, and especially since it's a new chain, so it's pretty tight. You gotta unravel it, fish it through the end there, and then fish it back around here, get it hooked up to the sprocket, and then attach basically one end to the trolley here. And then once you get that end attached with this piece with the bolt, lock nut, and then another bolt on this side, and this is how you adjust the tension. You're going to take the other end of your chain, and it's going to have, you know, a single hole, and it's going to fit here. So what you're going to do is you're going to use these three pieces. So this is going to be what connects the two with the pins. This will be the back side, and then that's the little clip that locks it all together. And this is no different than like a bike chain or a motorcycle chain, or even a bigger chain on some other piece of equipment or motor or whatever you have. And this is basically how you can adjust lengths. So let's say in the future I have this all the way adjusted to be as tight as possible, but it's still, the chain's still really loose. You can pop the master key off and then actually take a pin and punch out a couple links, whatever you need to do, you know, 5-10 links, and then put it all back together. And then you would just use another one of these, or just use this to reattach it back to here. So like I said, all you gotta do is just slide this together like so, put those through, and then put the clip on at the bottom. So I'm gonna try my best to kind of show you what's all going on here. It's kind of hard to do with one hand and manipulate the camera at the same time, so I'm going to see what I can do. Alright, so you can kind of see what's going on here. I know the angle is not the greatest, but that's what we got to work with. So I'm going to stick the kind of the main piece of the key in with the pins facing down. That way, if for whatever reason the the clip or the bottom piece breaks off, the whole thing's not just going to fall apart. And then I'm just going to slide this in here, and then you can kind of see what I mean, where if the bottom plate or the clip breaks off, there's not as big of a chance with the whole chain system falling apart on you, versus if you have it the other way around and that clip or the pin breaks off, it'll be on the top, and any sort of jiggling motion and you'll lose everything. So then I'm going to take the little plate piece, stick it up underneath, and then take your clip. And with this one, I'm going to come from this side, and we're just going to push it on as best we can. Alright, so now we got the clip partially on. There we go. Now it's actually together, and you can probably kind of see, or maybe not. So the clip just kind of holds it all together. I'm able to get this one spun around, so you can kind of see the clip just holds, and there's two little detents on the pins that go through, and that's just what holds the chain on. And then this piece will be your tensioner, and then all you gotta do is just tighten on this bolt, and that'll pull the chain together, and that'll raise it up. And I think in the book it says that you don't want the chain to basically be below this piece here. So as the chain's going back this way against the trolley, this little piece of plastic is what the chain will rub against, and you just want it to be rubbing on that surface at all times. So all you gotta do is just keep an eye on it. If it starts to droop, which it will over time as the chains starts to kind of wear out in the pivot points, you just have to go back through with your wrench, adjust it, just to bring it back up. You don't want it too tight, because you could break the chain. If there's too much tension on it, it'll snap. So you want it just to be you want a little bit of slop, but not too much, because if you have too much slop, then it'll start to fall off on the sprocket there, or on the pulley on the other end. So I'm going to get this adjusted to where it should be, and then let's see, I think the next step will be to take the old motor down and get ready to put this one up. Alright, so we got the chain adjusted, and per the instructions, it wants the chain to sit about in the middle here, in between the top and the bottom. Obviously you're not going to get it to the top, but obviously you want it above the bottom. And I can adjust it a little bit more. It's pretty good right now. I think once I get everything up in the air, I can come back and I'll adjust it. So the next step that we have to do is get ready to mount, or to actually mount this to the wall first, just because that's the easiest way to do this. So what you'll do, or what I've done for the garage door openers that I've installed in the past, is I'll set the motor portion on the ground and then swing that end up, which will connect to the wall, up towards where it needs to connect to the bracket. So what I've already done is swapped out the old bracket for the Ryobi opener to the bracket for this one, just because the Ryobi bracket was a little bit wider, and we don't want the slop side to side. So you want to use the brackets that come with the opener that you're installing, unless you're replacing the same model, but you'll just want to double check to make sure that the bracket width is the same or pretty close to the same. So for installing this, all that is required is this pin and this little ring here that almost looks like a key ring. And what you're going to do is you're just going to push the pin through the end on the bracket hole. So you just push it through, and then you'll slide this through the end there. There's some holes there. And then you're going to run this key ring through here, and this is what's going to lock it in place so the pin doesn't fall out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this set up on my ladder. And then as you can see up there, I have the bracket ready. And then we should be able to just reuse this arm piece for the new door, for the new opener. I should be able to put the pin in there. If not, I do have the pieces in the arm extensions and all that for for this door. They're right here, and this is some elbow piece for mounting that. So we're going to take the motor, and since this is as heavy as it is, if you grab kind of towards the motor portion, it ends up being pretty balanced for the most part. And then, see if I can kind of get you guys to see what I'm doing here. So we're just going to swing this up towards the bracket and get it pretty close. If you can, get it in the bracket itself. And then just gently set the motor portion on the ground. And then we'll climb our ladder using 3 points of contact because we're being extra safe, but not really. And then we'll come up here, and then you can kind of see there's that hole there. So you're just going to push a pin in, and then you'll adjust this up, down, left, right, out if you have to. And once you get the one side in, usually the other side goes in pretty easy. Usually. There we go. Alright, so our pin's in. Now we'll just take our little key ring spool here. I don't know why they don't use a cotter key instead. Those are easier, but then all you're going to do, you're just going to push it through the hole here and then just spin it around so that it's locked into place. And now that pin won't come out no matter what you do. And the next step is to actually lift this up and mount it to the brackets that are existing. I'm hoping that we get close enough to match up with one of the holes there. Otherwise I gotta move that whole assembly forward or back, which would be a real pain in the butt. But I think we'll be okay. So the safest way to do this, and the way that they actually recommend it in the manual, is to use a ladder. And the best way to do it is to get your ladder pretty close to where the brackets are, or where you expect your opener to be. And then, so you got to remember that everything kind of pivots down. So the opener's here, it's going to pivot up and then into your bracket. So you kind of want to think, okay, I got a 6-foot ladder. I'm going to pivot down. The motor might come maybe a foot forward for the brackets. So if you come to the brackets and then you set the top of your ladder about a foot over, that should be a pretty good spot for you. So that way when you're lifting that motor up, you can get it up to the top of the ladder, set it down, then you can climb up your ladder and then have your bolts and stuff on your ladder ready to go. And then all you got to do is lift it that last foot or two up to the actual brackets that are mounted to the ceiling, slide your bolts through, and then it'll hold the weight, and then you can tighten your nuts on, and then from there run your wires, or in this case we'll be able to use the old sensors for the new door. So I'm going to get my ladder set up, and I'll kind of show you how I swing it, since this one's a little bit lighter so I can easily do it with one hand. Alright, so we got the ladder set up, and as you see, it's maybe not quite a foot, like 6 inches or so in front of the brackets, and it's off to the side. So if you can see, the motor is there, brackets are pretty much straight in line with that, and the ladder is off to the side, just because when this comes up, you gotta kind of work around the ladder. And in some cases you can pull the frame around and then set it up. In this case I don't want to pull it too much because I don't want to bend anything up there. So I'm just going to set the ladder off to the side. Then once I get it up close, I can set it down, and then I can readjust. I can come from the back side here, and I can lift the motor up a little bit and then move the ladder over with my other hand to get the ladder where I want it underneath. So all you're going to do in this case is one hand under the motor, and you're just going to lift it up, go over, and then boom, just set it up like that. And as you can see, it's a little cockeyed, a little off center, but I got the majority of the weight resting on the top of the ladder, and we're right, underneath the brackets, maybe about 2.5 feet below it. So now all I have to do is I'll lift this up, slide the ladder over, and then I'll grab my bolts that'll mount, that'll go in one of these holes and match up there, and this will secure everything. And then once we're there, All we have left to do is just run the wiring for the sensors and the clicker, and then plug this in. And then the very last thing that we'll do, or one of the last things we'll do, is actually attach the door to the trolley. And then after that, it's just setting up the stop. So how high you want the door to open, and then where you want it to stop, and how much pressure you want it to have when it's closed. So I'll get this, the ladder and everything set up, and grab my brackets for mounting, and I'll catch you when we have it all mounted up. All right, so got this mounted up here. We were able to get it into the second hole on each side, which is good. That means we're square. We're not super all cockeyed and wonky. And all I do when I put these in is I just lift this up, get it to where it's pretty close, slide the bolt in, and then relieve the pressure on the one side, and then do the exact opposite on the other side. There's enough weight from the motor and everything that this isn't going to go anywhere if it's not bolted in on this side. But you definitely want to have everything bolted in before you start using the motor, just because you don't want it to come falling down on you or on your vehicles for whatever reason. So now all we have left to do is put your locking washer on, which is a waste of engineering. If you watch AVE, he's another YouTuber. He's got a pretty good sized channel. He's gone over the actual engineering and the specs on why locking washers are actually a waste of time, because when you actually do the clamping force with a locking washer, it ends up being no different than just a regular washer. The theory, or the justification behind the locking washer is that it's supposed to give you a little bit of extra clamping force, but a standard bolt with a standard washer will give you the same amount of clamping force, whether it's a locking or a regular washer, just because when you clamp it down, that washer ends up being flat like a normal washer anyway. But I digress. So what I'm going to do is take my 1/2-inch wrench and ratchet, and we're going to tighten these down. And then from there, I'm trying to think what's next. I do believe the next steps from here, it's kind of to each his own. I think what I'm going to try and do is wire up the sensors from the old garage door and see if those work, because if they do, that means I don't have to replace the old ones and put in the new ones and then run the new electrical with the new low voltage and all that jazz. So I'm going to try and do that first, and then if that works out, what we'll do is we'll finish working on the control arm and the trolley and getting the safety cable and all that stuff hooked up. So I'm going to tighten these down, test these, make sure they work, and then we'll move on from there. All right, so we got our wire, our low voltage wire run all the way from the motor itself, all the way across the ceiling and down the wall, and then we're going to put our clicker, our wall button right here. And what I did to attach, or to keep the wire up in the ceiling, is I actually ran screws into the wall and into the ceiling, and then left them out a little bit, and then as I would run the wire around up to it, I would just loop it. And I would loop it in a way so that the piece that was coming this way was underneath the piece going towards the garage. That way it was holding everything up. And then just a little bit of tension on it. That way it should keep everything up and out of the way. I will have to adjust. There's one wire for the one sensor kind of hanging low over there. I'll have to adjust that one up a little bit, and that's not too big of a deal. And then I got to adjust the light power cord that's hanging over the motor. But what I want to show you is how to wire up the clicker itself. So I can kind of hold you in my crook right here. So we got this guy right here. It's got 2 screws on the inside, and on the circuit board, you might not be able to see it, but on this side it says red, this side it says white, and the wire itself has one cable that's got a red stripe on it and one that's just all white. And all you're gonna do is, alright, so I got two of my legs here. So this side's red, this side's white. All you're gonna do is you're just gonna back these screws off a little bit, And you want maybe about 1/4 inch or so, just enough to where you can loop the exposed wire around, and then you're just going to tighten the screw onto it. And an easy way to loop this wire is to take your screwdriver and like your thumb, and then just press the wire like that, and you'll get a nice little loop. You see the same for the other one. So now we got 2 loops of wire, and then we're just going to make sure that we're grabbing the right one. So the red one is this guy, so that's going to go right here. So red to red, and the top is this way, so we're going to want to hook it that way. So we're just going to hook it. Oops. And then tighten it down. You just want to do a little tug, make sure that the wire is not going to come loose, and then we'll do the same for the white wire. And we'll just kind of fold this one around. And then same deal. Camera. This isn't as easy as it looks with the camera. And then same with the red wire, we're just going to screw that down until it's tight. Make sure that everything's touching. Just fold that in a little bit. Fold that in a little bit. And then we just want to make sure that both those wires are going to be coming out the top. And then we'll grab the wall screws. Put you in my pocket so I can lose you. And then I've already pre-mounted this, so I know exactly where I want it, which helps when you're going to reinstall this after you get the wires hooked up, because then all you got to do is just put the screws back in the hole that you already have. Up there, you can kind of see, so on the far right, there's a black kind of box looking thing with 2 wires running into it, and then a white one. So those 2 groups of wires, there's one for each door. So the gray wires are the wires that have some writing on it. That's going to be your gray wires. Those go in that black or that gray box on the right. And then the wires that don't have any writing on it go in the white box together, and that's what makes that circuit for the sensors. So that'll power the sensors and allow you to check and see if the old sensors you have or the new ones are working when the lights come on when you plug it in. And then the other 2 boxes, so the red and the white one, those are the ones for the wall clicker, since this one doesn't have a wireless clicker. And all those are, you strip the wire down maybe about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, and then you just push it in there and it locks it in place, and then the little orange tabs on the bottom is what will release it if you need to change them out for whatever reason. That's all you gotta do. And then the other buttons there are for setting up the garage door and resetting it and all that jazz. And then the yellow wire underneath is your antenna for your clickers. And I'm trying to think. Oh, the only other thing that you'll have to do is there's actually no light bulb that comes with the opener, so you'll have to put one in there if you want the garage to let the opener to light up when you use it. As you can see, I've got plenty of lights in my garage, so I don't really need that forward light in here, but it's nice to have a light in there so you know that the garage door is at least trying to open when it is running. Yeah, so that'll do it for this video. Like I said, I've got a few other projects to do. I've still got the ladder shelf to do, my mom's garbage bin, and I actually ordered insulation for the crawl space. So that should be another quick video that I'll knock out here soon. And I'll try and keep the content rolling. My goal is to have videos out every Friday or Saturday, once a week. Especially once we get closer to spring and summer, I'll have more projects to do around here and definitely be able to keep you guys updated. And I will get this guy insulated as well. I'm not going to make a video of that because you saw me do it on that door. Same process, just a bigger door. But that will conclude today's video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down there in the comment section. I will answer them when I see them. And I will also post a link for this opener from Home Depot. That way, if you guys are interested in getting one, you can kind of see the pricing, and then you can see if there's anything else, any other options you might want. Yeah, that's it. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.